Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thank you again for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first on satellite, way out there in the west, another front here pushing eastward, well past Chimia by early afternoon, with the wind, rain, and clouds pushing in toward Adak, and then the front extending up and most of the moisture sliding up into the Russian Far East, with high pressure here off to the, or coming in over the mainland areas. We've got southwest flow carrying this batch of moisture northeastward, warm front in there, so temperatures on the rise from what they were overnight and yesterday, with snow changing over to rain throughout the day, of course back down toward the southwest. They're already into rain during the afternoon, but very light amounts of precipitation into the central interior areas. And then to the south here, more sunshine, drier conditions, a few clouds around the Talkeetna Mountains, eastern Copper River Basin there, over toward the Wrangell Mountains, and the southeast coast, mostly sunny in some areas, with the trough pushing off into Canada, just some lingering clouds and sunshine mostly along the north coast today, but not too bad across the entire area there with light winds, some sunshine from Yakutat over to Cordova, Prince William Sound, and of course across the Kenai Peninsula and on down to Kodiak Island. See quite a clear area down here, but the next system, clouds gathering with the next system there, will be are pushing northward, as you can see as I roll the loop through, gradually coming up from the south. That'll continue tonight and into tomorrow. And on the chart today, warm front roughly right in this position here. So snow in advance of the front, mixed rain and snow along the front, behind it changing over to mostly light rain or areas of drizzle, especially back toward the Seward Peninsula, but nothing too terribly heavy. Maybe a few isolated showers down in the central interior, but that's about it other than clouds. And then the sunshine here south of the Alaska Range on down across Bristol Bay, 1,030 millibar high there sitting near the Pribilof Islands. Light winds across the eastern Aleutians. We got clouds there socked in along the north shore. And again, back up across the Pribilof Islands, the Yukon Delta coast, but good sunshine there down to Kodiak Island. And again, showers leaving the Panhandle off to the east. Dry weather, just a few clouds, some sunshine, light winds there. For tonight, we'll see high pressure kind of retreating, center redeveloping off to the east here. 1,030 millibar high now over the just about over the Wrangell Mountains, and that'll keep it dry over southern Alaska, but the still a pretty good ridge into the western interior here, but the whole pattern shifting eastward, and so most of this energy being directed to the north initially, but the front kind of in a split flow a little bit here, aloft, weakening as it comes eastward, slow, gradually, eventually spreading some rain into the Adak area later tonight. Winds coming up a little bit, but not too strong. Maybe some small craft advisories. Otherwise, partly mostly cloudy. Eastern Aleutians, dry, light winds. Into Bristol Bay, no change. Rain showers here along the northern areas. Milder temperatures tonight, and looks like it'll be mixed rain and snow eventually, even all the way over to the eastern Arctic coast toward morning. Kodiak Island, increasing clouds. Beginning to pick up some lower clouds that will result in some fog or drizzle. Main front still well to the south there, but coming northward gradually. Clouds increasing here off the Panhandle as well, with marginal VFR conditions developing with a patchy fog and some areas of drizzle. Light winds across southern Alaska. Looking ahead to tomorrow, you can see this system comes northward with the winds definitely on the increase here. Kodiak Island, probably seeing gale force winds push in to the area there, with rain becoming heavy at times, especially along the eastern side of the island there. Quite windy across the Aleutian Range, into northeast Bristol Bay, and then on down along the Alaska Peninsula. They become more northeasterly and then northerly there and lighter, say from False Pass, and remaining light over the eastern Aleutians. Still a narrow ridge of high pressure right through here. So low clouds and fog right up to the coastline. Should be a mostly sunny day here across southern Alaska with, again, light wind conditions. And again, also for the southeast coast, strong high pressure right near Skagway and light winds, sunshine tomorrow. And up to the north, still hanging on to some clouds and moisture, but not as much as what you saw today with still the heaviest amounts on the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. Could see a few showers into the northern Koyukuk Valley. Warm front, again, spreading warmer conditions with snow changing to rain to the eastern Arctic coast and then diminishing the main front back to the west. Winds a little bit stronger in advance of the front there across the Chukchi Sea, with this frontal boundary extending southward. That's becoming kind of a stationary feature right through here as another low develops and pulls up toward AKwx. So that's going to keep AKwx and Atka in that rain and cloud area there. Again, winds not all that significant at all. Pretty light, actually. Even behind it, northwest, maybe 5 to 15 for Shimia, with maybe an isolated shower or two. And then looking ahead to Monday, we'll see that this system weakens and pushes northward, really coming down to 995 millibars to the low. You can see a lot less lines around the center than 24 hours earlier. And the front bringing a good shot of rain and moisture right up to the North Gulf Coast across south central Alaska. So Monday, wet across much of southern Alaska, eastward to Yakutat. Tanana Valley in this pattern, mostly dry, maybe even a few breaks yet, and then back into the upslope flow there along the Brooks Range, back into the rain and clouds, and maybe some isolated rain and snow showers, excuse me, out toward the Arctic coast. Panhandle still pretty fair there, but the high pulling off to the east, and so look for an increase in the clouds along the coast, maybe over the northern areas, but staying dry down to the south. And then out here we've got a weak trough that could bring a few isolated showers to the Pribilof Islands. That old system down here really, or actually another one coming northward, will bring an increase in the chance of rain late in the day, probably holding off till Monday evening here for the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And the winds really not that strong with this system as they will be with the one out ahead of it. And then we've got another stronger front racing eastward here into the western Aleutians and Bering Sea. Gusty west winds, 30, maybe 35 knots, west-southwest, rain. Definitely a pretty good swath of rain coming in. It'll stretch to about Amchitka late in the day, so you'll be in between and a break there for AKwx and Atka for Monday afternoon. And moving on to the forecast lows for tonight, down to the mid-20s here. Susitna Valley into south central Alaska and near 30, say at Kenai. Well into the lower 20s, or maybe even dropping to near or a little below 20 degrees in the Copper River Basin. Milder, though, up to the north with the clouds and southwesterly flow and moisture coming in. You see out here toward the northwest coast, lows right around 40, near freezing for the central and eastern Arctic coast, and kind of a range in temperatures here for the Panhandle, depending on your cloud cover here, but say 35 to 44 or 3 roughly. Same for Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula. Lower to mid-40s for the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, shaping up like this. Not too bad, into the lower to mid-50s for the Kenai Peninsula and the Susitna Valley. May reach the upper 50s around Talkeetna, possibly, and lower 50s out toward the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta coast, mostly in the Kuskokwim Delta, Yukon Delta. Looks like mostly in the upper 40s there. Mid-40s for the Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island, with mid-30s here across the Brooks Range. But look at the warm-up along the Arctic coast there. Definitely the cold snap has ended, at least for the time being there, with temperatures rising back into the lower 40s on the west side, and that'll eventually reach the east side as well, probably Sunday evening. Otherwise, not much change temperature-wise out in the Aleutians, with numbers right around the 50-degree mark, ranging from 49 at Falls Pass and Atka to 51 degrees over at Shimia. Otherwise, looking at about 46 for St. Paul and 44 up there at Savunga, as well as Nome and Shishmaref, with a low of mild 45 degrees for Kotzebue. And then for the morning low temperatures Monday morning. We've got still mild here in the southwest, 45 to 50 for the lows for northeast Bristol Bay, upper 30s there for the northwest coast, and chillier here on the east side where the skies are a little clearer with the temperatures falling into that 25 to 30 degree range from about the Copper River Basin northward, mid-20s eastern Brooks Range, and the Panhandle again 35 to 43 degrees, and upper 40s here for the Kodiak Island zone. And then for the highs tomorrow afternoon, 50s, mid-50s Tanana Valley, and lower to mid-50s south central Alaska. Even though got clouds and rain coming in, it's going to be pretty mild with a southerly flow. Mid to upper 50s down along the southeast coast, and mid-50s also out over the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into the aviation forecast here for the significant flying weather, we've got band IFR up here along the central and eastern Arctic coast. Also, still some IFR early tomorrow along the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range. VFR all the way down to the south to Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, eastern interior, with that front, a swath of IFR out here slowly moving eastward in toward Adak, but staying well west of the Pribilofs and just catching St. Lawrence Island. And by to the southeast coast to start the day will be VFR, and it'll stay VFR the entire day, but be a lot of marginal VFR just off the coast here, not only of the Panhandle, but the North Gulf Coast. Some of that might get linger up in Prince William Sound, south of the Kenai Peninsula, across Kachemak Bay, and then IFR showing up along the east side and south sides of Kodiak Island, as well as the Alaska Peninsula associated with the next storm moving northward. So for Monday morning, that advances northward here with IFR now to the Kenai Peninsula into western Prince William Sound, back down across Kodiak Island, and marginal VFR in the increase here for south central Alaska, but staying off the coast for the Panhandle, VFR in the interior, maybe some marginal right along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and then not too bad actually through the Bering Strait, marginal from St. Lawrence Island, and then that band of IFR out here with the front. Now, exiting Atka, beginning to slip on into the Nikolsky area. Then for Monday afternoon, that tends to just dissipate out, and then another band here with the next system coming eastward. Some spotty IFR along the southwest coast of Kodiak Island, marginal VFR, a little more widespread here over the southwest interior and the west coast, and eastward into the Koyukuk Valley, again staying south of the Brooks Range. North Slope VFR, marginal on the eastern coast, and IFR here hanging in along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area. Passes, Anatuvik, IFR tomorrow, rapidly becoming VFR, hopefully. At least it'll become marginal, that's for sure. Same forecast for Adigan, a little better chance there of it becoming VFR. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, another VFR day coming up, as well as for rainy and windy, as well as Isabel, Mentasta, and Tanita, all VFR. Portage, same forecast, VFR, at least for one more day. Late tomorrow, probably the next day though, before it goes back lower. And then for Chilkoot and White, VFR. For the freezing levels, 4,000 feet to 6,000 feet. So coming up here with the ridge moving eastward, increasing southerly flow, warmer air. The cold air now shifting off into the Northwest Territories. We've got a gradient of 2,000 feet to 6,000 feet across the southeast coast. Icing possibly lingering but diminishing along the Brooks Range tomorrow, but persisting out along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast north slope of just light rime, possibly there above about 3,000 feet, but definitely heavier icing coming up from the south here into Kodiak Island. Southern Kodiak Island tomorrow afternoon could be widespread moderate, but warmer temperatures push the freezing level up, so that'd be above about 7,000 feet. And then this slowly moving band out here, actually narrowing as it comes eastward. Could be some icing with that as well over the central Aleutians. And the jet stream here, one reason that front is weakening is we got a split flow right through here, so that's dragging some of this down to the southeast, that up to the northeast. Very slow movement. Again, the whole pattern though shifting eastward, so that front will be coming eastward there on Monday. Southeast flow tomorrow, pretty strong down here with the next system lifting northward, but ridging here now, retreating a little bit, but holding over the eastern interior. Good northerly flow there right along and off the southeast coast. For 9,000 feet, strong winds 40 to 55 knots at 9,000 feet here Coming up to Kodiak Island, mostly in the south. Tomorrow afternoon up to about here, 30 knots in the afternoon for the Barrens. Light over the southeast interior, but with a ridge shifting eastward, all southerly on the winds turn southwest. 15 knots, pick up to 45 in the western Arctic coast, 25 to 30 over the northern Bering Sea. And from there, 3,000-foot wind flow chart, about the same here. Speed's a little different, still high pressure, again, shifting eastward, keeping the panhandle in the light wind zone, as well as the southeast interior, 10 to 15 central interior, picking up to 30 knots up there along the central Arctic coast, up to 40 across the Chukchi Sea, 55-knot winds coming into, again, southern Kodiak Island, big increase in the winds there tomorrow afternoon, and not so much out to the west. Turbulence. Look for moderate chop over the northwest and along the Alaska Peninsula, and this will extend down to St. Lawrence Island.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the Northern Lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the Northern Lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside of you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job, that was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter, my goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you get to preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up. Your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and we have a special guest in the studio today. We welcome Amanda Terborg of the Aviation Weather Center. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Amanda's flown in all the way from Kansas City, and for those of you that don't know, the Aviation Weather Center serves the lower 48 for aviators, just as the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit here in Anchorage serves all of Alaska. So I kind of wonder, what's the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City doing to help out Alaska, Amanda?
Yeah, we do a lot of collaboration work with our sister station up here. Lately, we've been doing a lot of work, especially in the satellite meteorology.
Okay.
In particular, we have been looking at ways to better identify icing conditions in clouds, which is a big deal up here because, as I'm coming to find out, even though I'm not from here, you guys have a lot of pilots here.
We have a lot of pilots. In fact, when you say you can't get there from here, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so with icing potential then, what's Kansas City working on?
Well, we are working on something that will help us, again, identify the icing in the clouds. You don't want ice on your aircraft.
No.
Not only does it add a whole bunch of extra weight to your airframe when it attaches to the wings and the nose cone, but it can also mess with your aerodynamics.
Right.
And in the most serious conditions, that can mess with it enough that you can actually crash.
It changes the shape of the wing, and that makes it sometimes impossible to fly, right?
It does, yeah. So we want to figure out a way to better forecast for that.
Makes sense.
Now this particular image is over Alaska. The colors here are a little goofy. It doesn't look like your run-of-the-mill satellite image.
Okay.
But the red is where you have liquid clouds and the blue is ice. But again, it really doesn't tell you a lot where you have icing conditions in that cloud. Because in those clouds there's little droplets, and they're cold, and they're actually below freezing, but they're still liquid, and that makes them sticky.
Okay.
So when an aircraft flies through there, those droplets are sticking to the aircraft, and it can happen amazingly fast.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to find. And there is a product called the Aircraft Flight Icing Threat that does this. And it's basically looking at the temperature of the cloud, and it's also looking at the size of the droplets to identify a probability and intensity of those icing conditions.
Okay.
And if you flip to the next image, this is a case from Juneau, Alaska, where this probably wouldn't have been the best day to fly around Juneau.
Okay.
Now there was an area of moisture that pushed south from the southwest up along the coast that pushed in a stratus layer. And in the stratus layer there was a lot of those super cooled liquid drops, or a lot of stickiness.
Okay.
And so the flight icing threat was able to, in the pinks and the reds there, was able to identify where that icing was. Now this is really cool. It's really cool to be able to identify that. There is, of course, caveats to every product. Much as we wish it would it would happen. Sun doesn't shine all the time, unless, I guess, if you live in northern Alaska during the summertime.
Right, right.
But we need that sun to be able to bounce off those clouds and to be able to see where those super cool drops are.
Okay, so it's a daytime only tool.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, of course, you know, we're in the era of advanced satellite technology, and there is a satellite that can actually use moonlight to see clouds.
Yes.
And so sometime in the future, we hope to be able to do that.
Okay.
Another thing that is a bit of a challenge is multiple layers of clouds. You know, you can only see so far through a thick cloud.
Okay.
And if it's thick enough, sometimes you can't see a layer of icing that's below there.
Right, right.
But even besides those caveats, this product has a lot of potential to help out Alaskan aviators here.
Well, it sounds like a really big deal, and something that forecasters at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit could use probably on a daily basis, and especially in the middle of a really big storm.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you have a really good success story in the lower 48 using this tool?
You know, it's a fairly new product, and so we're still evaluating it. But yeah, we've had a lot of cases where we have seen that it does tend to capture those icing conditions.
Okay, very good. Well, Amanda, thanks so much for sharing some of the very interesting satellite imagery and the tools that you're using there at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City with us here in Alaska. People can probably find some of this information online, right?
Yeah, here is a website here. It's a page from NASA Langley, and they have this imagery as well as a bunch of other satellite imagery that you can take a look at.
Okay, great. And I'm sure our friends at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center and the unit will be using that in the coming months there with your training and your help there to learn more about that tool to help Alaska aviators any day of the year. That's wonderful stuff. So thanks again for joining us, Amanda, and we welcome you to view any of our Alaska weather facts on YouTube anytime at the address below, and we'll see you next time.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hi, I'm Ed Ullman, CEO and General Manager of Alaska Public Media. If you're currently a member, whether you give every month or every year, thank you so much for your